Welcome to Your Financial Advocate with Greg DuPont from DuPont Wealth Solutions. As a practicing advisor and attorney, Greg teaches pre-retirees how to reduce debt and taxes and save with less risk so they have more spendable income and plan their way to a better life. Join us for this journey where Greg draws on years of experience and guest experts to help listeners achieve more spendable income for retirement.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Financial Advocate with Greg DuPont. Today I'm so excited to have as a special guest Suzanne McClain. Suzanne and I met, I think we might have crossed paths in the past, but just recently kind of reconnected through LinkedIn, which is a story in and of itself, that whole networking thing, LinkedIn. But every once in a while, you come across a gem, a nugget. And in my practice, one of the things that we have not been involved in with our clients is Medicare and all the stuff that goes along with it. And in all candor, for years, I've tried to find somebody that I felt was kind of above the rest in their ability to understand the nature of this Medicare challenge and to communicate that and to serve clients. And just a few moments with Suzanne and her story and understanding where she's coming from, and cross-referencing a couple of things because I always do my due diligence. I think I finally found somebody here that is a valuable resource for our community. And I want to share her with you, share her story with you, and let you get to know Suzanne McClain. Suzanne, thank you so much for doing what you do and taking some time out of your day to be with us.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's a great opportunity, and I really appreciate this. So a little bit about me is, and I love to share my story of where I came from and what I'm really about. So I would say I was raised one of 5 children, and my dad was a minister. So my mom and dad had ministry where my dad would go to churches and preach and build up small congregations. He was also in the business world. So as he was climbing the corporate ladder, at times he could go higher, but he would say, okay, kids, we're going to pack up and move over to this state, and we're going to help this church get off the ground. So as a child, I really didn't understand. But as I, got older, I thought, man, my parents are always giving and helping other people. And it was kind of bred in me, like, really, Suzanne, just help people. And I loved that. So I remember in my early 20s, there was a minister, him and his wife and their kids, and they were having a little bit of financial struggles. And I remember, like I said, I was early 20s before Ring Doorbell. And I remember me and a group of my girlfriends got together, went to the grocery store, got some groceries, went over to their house, dropped them off, rang the doorbell, and left. So they didn't know it was us. And that feeling of, oh my word, what a great feeling of helping people that had been instilled in me my whole life. I just didn't really understand that it was instilled in me. So as I got older, I thought to myself, but I want a career. I want to help people. How can I do that? And you might think, well, why Medicare, Suzanne, of all things? So I promise you it will translate. So the way that the Medicare works is, I believed that my God-given mission was to help and protect people when life gets complicated. And as we all know, going into Medicare and retirement is complicated. So my passion really sparked of, man, I really want to do something. So let's fast forward a few years. My husband and I were over to my in-laws' home. We were having dinner. And at the time, they were 67, was my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law was 70. And he had retired from the federal government. He was Medicare age. And basically, we started just chatting and, talking about his insurance. And I always referred to him as a seminar junkie. So he would go to Anthem, and he'd go to Humana, and he'd go to Medigold. He'd go to all these seminars and talk to whoever was presenting, but they would all tell him something different. So we were having dinner that night, and he started asking me questions because I had got involved in insurance before, but not Medicare. So he starts chatting to me and like, hey, I just want to make sure I'm covered and everything correctly. So of course, this is before everything was online. He gave us the CD, popped it in the computer, and my husband and I started reviewing his plan. And as we dug into it deeper and deeper, we realized that he had not signed up, nor had my mother-in-law signed up for Medicare Part B, as in boy. He had signed up for Part A, but not Part B. So the more we looked into it, we started talking to him, and he's like, well, I have this retiree insurance. I guess I don't even know that I need that, or I don't understand. So we got, digging into it. Come to find out, yes, he did need the Part B. So we helped him get signed up for it. And to this very day, my mother and father-in-law are 83 and 85. They are still paying that late enrollment penalty. So we were able to stop the penalty from accruing. But with Medicare, if you don't do, you don't sign up when the time is right for you, then penalties start accruing, and they're lifelong penalties. So it really sparked my interest of, man, he's a smart guy. Like, how did this happen? So I thought to myself, well, I really want to serve people, and I really want to help people. I don't want anybody else in this situation. So very shortly after that, I got involved into Medicare. And like I said, my mission, my God-given mission, is to protect people and help people when life gets complicated. And I want to protect every person from getting those penalties. Because we were just talking, my mother and father-in-law and I were talking maybe at the end of last year, and they had paid over $9,000 in penalties just because they didn't understand, or they weren't advised right, and they really just didn't know. And that's really where my passion is so deep with Medicare, because I do not want to see anybody else into this situation.
It's so easy to make that mistake, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
And many others that can be made with Medicaid. So, so let's talk a little bit about, what it looks like. So someone's coming into retirement, and they're on the horizon. They know they got to get their ducks in a row. What are the kind of first steps, and how does a service like yours interact with people to help them in this journey?
Okay, so the first thing, when a client calls our office, and we start gathering some information. So we need to know things like, where are you, what's your income, what's your prescription drugs, what's your demographic. So we ask all these questions. So then once you get the appointment with the advisor, we go through what we call the Medicare Joy process. So has anybody ever had their joy stolen? Because Medicare can steal your joy. So I like to give your joy back. So the way I kind of broke it down to is the J, O, and Y. So let's just break it down. So when you meet with us, we do a Zoom or whatever. When we start going through the process, the J is like a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, so let's take it. If you're like me, you do a jigsaw, you dump out the jigsaw puzzles, you flip them all up to where you can see everything, right? So each piece of the questions that we ask is a puzzle piece, like who's your doctors? Who's your hospitals? What prescriptions are you taking? We need to see the full picture in order to really be able to advise you right. And those jigsaw puzzle pieces are what changes so frequently. You may be on this list of medications this year, and the medications completely change the next year. You might be using this particular doctor, and then all of a sudden a new health issue comes up and you have to go to another doctor. So have you ever put together a puzzle with somebody that already put the puzzle together before? Well, it's a lot easier, right? So we've put this puzzle together now thousands of times. So the way that it works is we'll go through and we'll pick out each of these puzzle pieces. And we'll make sure that we know exactly all of the information that we need to collect so we can give you good advice. Okay. So that's the J, is all your jigsaw puzzle pieces. And then we go through what we call the O, which is the outline or your options. So we take your particular situation. So imagine, putting a puzzle together. So you're putting the outline, all I always call them the edge pieces. Once you get the outline all put together, now we're filling it in. So we take your particular situation. So maybe you're on your employer plan. Maybe you're still going to continue to work. Maybe you're on your spouse's employer plan. Maybe you're going to go ahead and retire and you're going to have to go on Medicare and pick out what type of plan that you want to go with, whether it be a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage. Let's say you have a spouse that's 60 years old and you're like, okay, well, if I retire and I lose my employer plan, what am I going to do with my spouse? So we take all of that in consideration. One thing that we're starting to see now is a lot of times people are turning 65 going on Medicare and now they're raising their grandchildren and they have their grandchildren on their employer plan. So we have to say, okay, well, how are we going to take care of the grandchildren's insurance if we take the 65-year-old and put them on Medicare? So we go through each particular option to make sure what's the right thing for you. And in my belief is there's not necessarily a right or wrong. There's not a one size fits all. It's funny, what I hear people say to me quite often is, hey, I was out to dinner, Suzanne, and I was talking with my girlfriends and they told me this, and everybody has a different story of what you should do. And really that's where I feel like you need to talk to an advisor that takes your specific situation and determines what is the best option for you. So we have covered all pieces of that puzzle. So that's RO. Now, one other thing that we do is we like to take and go through your, when you sign up for Medicare Part A and B, we explain to you what Medicare Part A and B covers. So part of the option is we're going to talk about what traditional Medicare Part A covers, Part B. If you need it, because you might not need it if you're staying on your employer plan. If you're contributing to a health savings account, there are certain rules around that. Sometimes when you want to Medicare, depending on your situation, you may not be able to continue to contribute any longer. So we'll definitely touch base on that. Once again, that's one of those puzzle pieces because you could be contributing to an HSA today with your employer plan and next year not be contributing because it's a different plan. So that's RO. And then the Y, and this is exactly the process we go through with you. The Y is the yearly reviews. So our yearly review is something that we absolutely encourage because once again, those puzzle pieces change. So during the yearly reviews, which is our open enrollment season each year, it starts October 15th and runs to December 7th. Now, my clients, I reach out to them in September. I kind of become your annoying best friend because I'm like, hey, it's September. We need to start gathering your data to start reviewing your plan for the next year. Now, kind of like you're an accountant. You can't drop off your taxes on April 13th to your accountant and say, hey, I know the deadline is April 15th. You have a couple of days to do this. So we start collecting data in September. Like, what are your updated doctors? What are your updated prescription drugs? What new conditions do you have? And then we start reviewing your plan as in knowing what the best option is for you for the next year. So that is our Medicare Joy process. The Y, once again, is the yearly reviews. Here's exactly what the things that we make sure we talk about. Sometimes your formulary can change. So let's say you're on a prescription drug. An insurance company can come on and say, hey, for next year, we're not going to cover that prescription drug. And that absolutely happened to us last year. One of our insurance companies that we work with came and said, anybody on this medication, we're not covering it next year. And it was a very expensive medication. So we had to go to all of our clients that had that medication and say, hey, we need to change you from this plan to this plan to make sure that they had their medication still covered for the next year. Another thing that we see is a formulary, what they call it, a tier change. So each of your prescriptions are broke down by tiers. Depending on the tier of the drug, depends on what you pay, right? So the way that it works is let's say that, so last year there was a drug that was a tier 3 drug on this one particular insurance company, which meant everybody who took that drug paid $45 when they went and picked it up at the pharmacy. Once again, it's an expensive drug. It was about a $700 drug. they moved it to a tier 4 drug, which was 47% of the retail cost. So that drug went from like $45 to now 47% of that $600 and some drug. Huge change.
Yeah.
So we have to catch that. Another one is pharmacy, preferred pharmacies. So I was doing a review for somebody last year, and it was kind of interesting because he said to me, I love my plan. My prescriptions are working perfect. I don't want to do anything to mess me up. And I said, okay, well, let's still review your plan because I may be able to look and catch something that maybe we don't know. So what I saw was he was using a specific pharmacy, which for this year, it was a preferred pharmacy. But next year, it was falling out of a preferred status, which meant if he literally went across the street to a different pharmacy, it saved him $1,600. We didn't change his plan. We didn't change his prescriptions. All I said is go from pharmacy A to pharmacy B, and there you go. You save $1,600. I jokingly said, was this conversation worth $1,600? That's part of the yearly reviews and why it's so incredibly important. I know one thing that I do is I keep track of my clients when we're doing reviews, because it's kind of it's a really busy time, and it kind of gives me that energy. You're constantly helping people. So I keep track of how much money we save our clients during the open enrollment period. At the end of the year, at the end of open enrollment, I say, okay, I tell my team, hey, we saved our clients X amount of money. This past year, we saved our clients, and this number is incredibly crazy. We saved them, let's see, it was $999,836.18. That was incredible.
Yeah.
So like my guy that I told you, my client that I said, hey, go from C or whatever the pharmacy was, one pharmacy to the next pharmacy, his $1,600 number was in that, because realistically, he would not have known to change pharmacies. Yeah. So that's part of the why in the Medicare Joy process.
You know, there's a perception that there's not much difference between plans. That's a commodity, and you just blew that out of the water. I guess there's a incredible difference between plans and providers, even though there are only a few providers.
Yes, another one of our plans that a lot of clients enroll in, they're network plans, which means you have to use specific doctors and hospitals. And I'll tell you, there was a big hospital system down in Muskingum County last year that pulled out of 2 of our insurance companies. So if you had that specific plan with either one of those insurance companies, you could not use that hospital system starting in 2024. That meant every person that was on one of those 2 companies had to change plans. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you that January comes and I'll get a phone call. I just went to the doctor or hospital and they said that they won't take my insurance no more, because some plans are network driven plans. And that's why those yearly reviews are so important, because if a hospital or doctor's office pulls out of the network on certain plans, you need to get a plan that's going to cover you, with your current doctors and hospitals for the next year. That's another reason during those yearly reviews.
Now, I just want to clarify or ask the clarifying question. Is there a fee for these yearly reviews, or is that part of your ongoing service to existing clients?
So we do have what we call an extra care membership. So I always like to kind of address the elephant in the room as well. How do you guys get paid? So first thing we talk about is everybody that works for my office, everybody on my team is paid a salary. Because if you meet with one of my other advisors, there's no incentive. They might look at you and say, the next 10 calls that they get, they might do the review and say, hey, you need to stay on your employer plan. There's no incentive. We always want to make sure we do what's right. So all of my team is paid a salary. Doesn't matter if they enroll you in a plan or not. So the way that we're paid from the insurance companies is our agency is paid a commission. Okay. So now there is a difference in the way you're paid based on what you enroll in. So some insurance companies and some plans, you're paid a lesser amount. Others, you're paid, a lifelong type renewal. Well, I don't want in any way, shape, and form to push a product. So what we have tried to do, what we've done is we've come up with what we call an extra care membership to kind of help keep the business model make sense. Because once I like, again, one of our big plans that we do a lot of business and write a lot of business with, the commissions dwindle off. Well, we still want to take care of you. So we come up with this extra care membership. It's $199 a year or $19.99 per month. Now, when I created it, I said, well, let's just make it as cheap as a pizza. So really everybody can afford a pizza at $19.99 per month. But what we found is, especially as one's aged, they needed more help from us. So with this extra care membership, I sent out an email to my clients and I said, if I could do more for you, what would it be? And I got tons of emails back. Well, can you do this? Can you do this? So what I did is I took the top ones and said, okay, what can I do? So the number one, without a shadow of a doubt, was I want to make sure that you review my plan every year. Because as you know, you're sitting home, or you're at the gym, or you're watching television. About every 5 seconds, you see some Medicare commercial that pops in and says, oh, buy our plan and you get all these free items and you get this and that. Well, to me, there's a lot of confusion because you're like, well, do I really have what I'm supposed to have? So without a doubt, the first thing was I want Suzanne and her team to review my plan to make sure I'm on the right plan for the next year. So part of the extra care, you get the review. Like I said, I'm kind of your annoying best friend. In September, I reach out to you, text, email, phone calls. I send you mailers in the mail and I say, hey, you need to request your review, because I can't make anybody do a review, but I always encourage that. You also get access to our monthly live cast. So basically the way it works is it's a Zoom that I invite all of my extra care clients to. And during that Zoom, I talk about hot topics that's beneficial to you. So let me tell you an example. So every year in February, I go to Washington, D.C. I speak with congressmen. I help weigh in on Medicare legislation. So when I was there this past February, I sat down and I told some of my client stories to lawmakers, congressmen, staffers, basically saying, okay, my boots are on the ground. This is what my clients are dealing with. And I would tell your stories. I would tell stories about, hey, my doctor just put me on this medication and it's so expensive, I can't afford it because of the donut hole. Well, the donut hole is part of the prescription drugs, where when you fall in that hole, you pay more for your medication. So we're working on getting that donut hole eliminated. Those are the stories that I tell when I go to Washington, D.C. Also let you know that my team and I are always working on your behalf. I'm out there telling and fighting for you, weighing in on Medicare legislation. So you get access to those monthly live casts each month. You also get access to our billing concierge team. So basically the way that this works is if you get a bill in the mail and you're like, I don't understand what this bill is about, we will look into that bill as a professional eye and say, that bill does not make sense. Maybe they didn't have the secondary insurance. Maybe they didn't bill it correctly. Now, if we get digging into the bill and we see that you do legitimately owe it, you have to pay it. But what we find is a lot of times we find mistakes. So I had a guy just about 3 months ago, he called in and he was kind of distraught with what was going on because he was getting all this, as I call it, hate mail, saying, I'm turning you into collection. I'm turning you into collection. I'm turning you into collection. Well, his wife had just passed away. And what was very sad to me is he was mourning with his wife passing away and he is inundated with bills. And he really didn't know what to do. He sent him to our office. We reached out to all the different facilities and the doctor's offices and all this. And we was able to get all of that cleaned up for him. And really, he didn't owe any of those bills. They just didn't have her other insurance on file.
Let me make sure I heard that right. So for the pizza a year, or pizza a month, not only do you get the annual review to make sure that you're not getting caught with a $1,600 whammy, but you also have access to a service that can help sort through the voluminous billings that come out to your medical care.
Yes, yes. Now, I always have to say the disclaimer. If you owe it, you have to pay it. We don't negotiate for you. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we'll look at it and be like, this bill doesn't even have our secondary insurance or something like that. We'll look at it there. We've had so many success stories of just fixing simple problems. Whereas before, if nobody really knows, they'll just write the check and send the payment on.
Yeah.
So that's part of our extra care. So, and then of course, I always say you're introduced in the induction of our community that we are on a mission to help and protect our clients. So you're now joining our mission to help and protect moving forward.
Yeah, that's, with my 30 plus years of experience in probate, administrating estates, and seeing all those kind of claims come through, what you're doing there, that is missionary work there, Suzanne. Just that element alone, the peace of mind that you could bring to your clients with those billings, because those are just mind-boggling at times, and let alone everything else that you do. And I don't want to break a good thing, but I'm going to spread the word high around about what you're doing, because more people need those type of services. So how would somebody, maybe they've already got their stuff in order. We're recording this in the spring of 24. How would somebody best start a relationship with you and your team?
Well, they could always call our office, and what we can do now, we're not in open enrollment. So if you wanted to make plan changes and things like that, we can't make any plan changes right now, just because we're not in open enrollment. Now, let's say that you're just turning 65, you're just going off of your employer plan, you're just retiring, things like that. Those are all what we would call a special enrollment period, which allows you to enroll throughout the year. Now, we do have about 4,500 clients, so we do have a lot of fun. But what we do is call the office. We get your basic information. Once again, it's those jigsaw puzzle pieces. We need to get basic information from you. Another thing is Medicare requires you to sign a form. And I'd like to disclose this up front because some people get a little nervous. So Medicare requires you to sign a form. It's called a scope of appointment. It's basically a permission slip. It's saying, I want Suzanne McClain and her team to talk to me about, and it's 3 or 4 different products, Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage. I tell everybody, mark them all, so that gives us the freedom to talk to you about everything. Because we don't push one particular product. We give you, I always like myself and say, we're not in sales. We're strictly in education and helping people. We want to make sure that you pick what's right for you. So you'd reach out to us that way, give us a call at our office. I did forget to mention one thing, and that is I wrote a book on navigating the Medicare maze. Now, this book is stories of my clients. Everybody will get a copy of this book. All you actually have to do is call my office and request it, and I'll send you a copy. Because as everyone here on Medicare, they probably get the big fat book from Medicare, the Medicare New Handbook, that I think really very few people read. I always call it insomnia reading. So if you're tired, just open a Medicare book. No, I'm kidding. But with that being said, so I wrote this book here, and what I did is I took my client stories and I said, what can you share as someone that's been on Medicare, that has went through the program with me? What can you share that would be helpful to other people turning 65, going on Medicare, getting ready to embark on this part of their life? And anybody that would like this copy of my book, I would be more than happy to send it to them. You just can reach out and call my office, and we can get your address and everything and send it to you.
Great. And what would be the phone number and email address? And we'll put those in the show notes.
Okay. So the phone number to our office is 614 614-448-1834. So 614-448-1834. And the email address is my first name, Suzanne, Suzanne, at N as in national, U as in United, and then MedicareAdvisors.com. So Suzanne at NUMedicareAdvisors.com.
And the national in the name, does that mean that you work with people throughout the country, or are you geographically limited?
We are now located in about, I want to say it's 16 or 17 states. So what's interesting is a lot of people retire and they move to Florida, or they move to Arizona, or they move down south where it's warm. And then they tell their friends and tell their friends, and it just kind of is a snowball effect from there. And we work by referral. That's how we build our business. So as of right now, we're, I think, in 16 or 17 states. It seems that we're continually growing, which is always a good thing. So national, hopefully we'll be in all 50 states before too long.
Well, you keep on this mission, and I'm sure you'll get there. Suzanne, thank you so much for sharing your message with my audience here today and taking time out. And I urge anybody that's nearing that horizon or in that stage of life, give Suzanne and her team a call, because there might be $1,600 that's just getting taken from you without you even knowing it, that you can prevent come next open enrollment. So Suzanne, thank you again. Thank you for what you do.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to Your Financial Advocate. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of DuPont Wealth Solutions. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.